Hey guys, sorry about that. I'm gonna have to make a part two because when I tried to look up the internet while my phone was recording, the recording stopped. So this will be part two of day one. Day one, week 4. Okay, so the next question is the question that we're on is turn to Ephesians 6:15 and write it word for word in the space below. And that scripture reads, "And with your feet fitted with the readiness of that comes from the gospel of peace." So that's footwear. Okay. What spiritual virtue does Paul liken to the piece of the soldier's equipment? Footwear. Record your answer besides the corresponding piece of armor on the inside of the back cover. Now, I already filled everything out on the inside of the back cover as far as labeling the different pieces of armor because I wasn't paying attention to the directions when I did that. I just did it because I felt like it should have been done, but I put for the footwear gospel of peace. That's the footwear. Okay, next it says, picture yourself as a teacher of a Sunday school class filled with middle school children. One of them raises her hand and asks you to define peace. Write down the answer you give them. So, the answer for peace. What is peace? A third grader? They said a third grader asked me that question. Why? Oh, this is a middle school child. Okay. So peace is contentment. Contentment, or being completely at rest. At rest in comfort. That's what I call peace. Yeah, that's what I call peace. Okay, it says, what words might you use to describe the opposite of peace? Okay, I'll say not at rest. Not at rest. Restless. Uncomfortable. Yeah. Okay. Whew. Okay, next it says Prince of Peace. Prince instead of Prince, Prince of Peace. Of all the things the enemy seeks to steal and destroy in your life, peace is almost always at or near the top of his list. He intentionally stirs up discord, division, disruption, and disturbance, both within you and around you. He is the Lord of chaos and confusion, using every opportunity to upset your sense of well-being and stability. He wants you uneasy, unbalanced, filled with anxiety, worry, and turmoil, lacking peace. But there's more to it than that. Because perhaps, like no other attack, he knows that by nibbling away at your peace, he and his demonic entourage can cause his brand of tension to fan out in all directions, spreading out to your relationships, corroding them with disagreement and frustration. Mark it down. Wherever you feel an overriding sense of unrest inside or overwhelming distress in your relationships, your enemy is somewhere in the middle, stirring it up. Anywhere peace is lacking, you can be sure he's at work. Turn to page 120, which shows you where each piece of armor is explained throughout the book of Ephesians. Record any distinction you notice about the primary references correlating to the shoes of peace. Okay, so we're going to go to page 120, and then we're going to record any distinction I notice about the reference correlating to the shoes of peace. Okay, so page 120, here we go. 120. Hold on, guys. I'm turning. Okay, so this is the armor in the book of Ephesians. The Apostle Paul's delineation of armor in Ephesians 6 is simply a reiteration, a summary of the principles that he had already discussed beforehand in his letter. Each piece has been introduced and thoroughly explained earlier. This is why his comments about the This is why his comments at them at the end of the letter are so concise and succinct. The sword of the Spirit is the only article he defines along with its mention by identifying it as the Word of God. On the next page, you will find a list of each piece of armor along with the passage that are primarily and secondarily connected to and throughout the book. It is interesting to note that while Ephesians 6 lists the armor in the order that the Roman soldier would have put each piece on, Paul's explanation of them throughout the letter is in reverse order, starting with the helmet and ending with the belt. Food for thought. In the original language, the first 4 pieces of armor are introduced with adverbial particles that modify the command to stand. In verse 14, Paul's intention was to clarify the means by which one can stand against the powers of the darkness. They do so by being girded in truth, righteousness, peace, and faith. After viewing, so that's not what I'm supposed to read right now. Okay, so what was our original mission when we went to this page? It was to record any distinction you notice about the primary references correlating to the shoes of peace. So, the shoes of peace, we actually see it on page 121. And the reference is Ephesians 6:15, which we just read, Ephesians 2:11, Ephesians 4:16, Ephesians 1:13. Now, because I'm on my phone once again, I can't turn to these pages. As I mentioned before, I just recently moved, and my Bible is in one of these boxes. Which one? I don't know. And yes, I do have multiple Bibles, but I don't know where any of them are. And I only have one phone, so I could just make a part 3 or 4 and just keep cutting the video, but I don't think I want to do that. So I might have to skip this question for now and come back to it later. Okay. Let's go down back to page 96. It says, Remember, each of the pieces of armor are a mnemonic device of Paul's to summarize and remind the reader of what he'd already explained to in his letter. Notice that every other piece of armor comprises between 10 to 35 primary verses of early exposition. I'm having a difficult time pronouncing this, and I know after I watch this video, I'm gonna be like, girl, you knew this word. Exposition. Now I feel some type of way. I feel vulnerable, guys. But in dealing with the topic of peaceable relationships, Paul's teaching covered 49 verses. It's not hard to see why. The strong, tangible presence of peace in our personal lives and our relational interactions is perhaps our most vital spiritual commodity in threatening the success of the enemy's plans. So, naturally, a big part of Satan's business involves stirring up turmoil in our hearts and relationships. Our own sins, of course, including past sins, though forgiven, provide him with lots of working material for this task, as do the sins of others. If you've been a victim of abuse or injustice, for example, the enemy will ride the coattails of those wrongdoings to keep the pot boiling. For what may start with simmering, low-laying anger in his hands can turn into opportunities for forgiveness, which then compound into bitterness and resentment. Then, with these strongholds securely in place, you're much more likely to exert emotional walls that even keep people with good intentions from being allowed into your heart. You become on edge, defensive, unable to foster authentic relationships. One way or another, he's always out to steal your peace. Okay, so here's the question portion. I hope you guys can see me. When I'm reading stuff, I'm not really looking at the phone, and I actually kind of forget that it's there. So if the phone's turned like this or something like that, I don't notice it until I look up. Okay. So in the following areas, list any ways you detect disharmony, unrest, or overreaching lack of peace. We'll refer back to this exercise during our lesson today. So take your time. Okay. So in your mind, list ways that you can detect disharmony. Goodness. In your mind. I'll say insecurities because they will create disharmony. Hold on, guys, I'm writing. Alright, what about unrest? That's still insecurities. Or overreaching lack of peace. Yep, that's there. Just wrote that down. Okay, in your heart, how can you detect that disharmony, unrest, overarching? I would say bitterness. I'm doing these one-worded answers. Possibly they wanted more, but I'm giving them one-worded answers. In your body, how can you detect disharmony? I would say pain. Pain. Dysfunction. Dysfunctional parts, I guess. Between you and a friend, how can you detect disharmony? Arguments. Arguments are a big one. I would say also bitterness. I gotta put that down. Maybe jealousy. We're gonna put that one down too. Jealousy. Between you and your spouse, arguments. They're not healthy arguments. I'm talking about intense fellowship with your spouse. Arguments. Not. How do you say not on the same page? Not same pageness. I just made that up. I would say unsynced. Is that a word? Not in sync. I'll just put that. Not in sync. Between you and your child, arguments. I'm telling you. Arguments, lack of communication. Between you and your coworker, If I had to say arguments one more time, to you and your coworker, you know what? Also jealousy. Jealousy is a big one. Jealousy, rivalry. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that one at that. Next page. All right. How have you seen the enemy's handiwork in these experiences? He's fueled it. How else? He's fueled it out of nowhere. But out of the blue. How have you handled, or how are you generally handling these situations? Not well. Not well. Not in prayer. Um, Poorly. We'll just put that. We're being honest here. Poorly. Crippled by chaos. The most obvious benefit of Caliga was that the offered general protection that it offered general protection for the feet. Without ample coverage, Roman soldiers would be susceptible to harm and injury while traversing rocky terrain, almost any terrain. And hey, you can only go as far as your feet will take you. The result of having unguarded feet would leave them, if not out of commission, at least unable to stand firm for long periods or move with agility and not become further impaired. A life without peace is simply unprotected, crippled, unable to move forward, hindered from maturing by developing in a healthy fashion. How have you witnessed the lack of peace crippling someone, rendering them or her incapable of moving forward in life? Okay, so this is asking a personal question. Okay. How have you witnessed the lack of peace? So I would say I've seen past hurts and bitterness stop people from getting into new relationships. All right. In areas of your life that you noted earlier, how have you seen your own potential or growth stunted because of this unrest in your heart or in your relationships? Ask in personal stuff again. In what ways, if any, have you been unable to move forward? I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say that I don't deal with this, because I do, like everyone at some point in your life. I would just say right now I'm not dealing with it. In the past, I was bitter because something happened. I had a really good friendship where I felt like I was betrayed, and therefore I stopped trusting people. Even people that had nothing to do with that incident of betrayal. I just said, you know what? I don't need any friends, because if one can betray me, all of them can betray me. And I was going through something. And I would say, it ended. My bitterness kind of faded as time went by. I started trusting people a little bit more. I'm still not giving everybody the fullness of Sonya, but, trust them a little bit more. Everybody's not the same. So that's my situation in which my issues stunted my growth. If that was the question. Yeah, I believe that's a question. the unrest, my bitterness, my betrayal, my hurt caused my heart to not trust in relationships. And I'm talking about friendships. Well, I'm also talking about relationships with like dudes before I got married. Yeah. Okay. Anywho, we're moving on. No, we can't always take control. We can't always control the kind of ground we're forced to march across. We may get a pink slip from our job. We may get a positive test result from a doctor. We may get an upsetting message from a friend. We may have suffered abuse at the hands of another. None of these just wait. None of these like wait. I feel like my sentences are getting mixed up. None of these, like none of the emotional and rational things you've been personally experienced, is easy to deal with. And the enemy will always try to take advantage of experiences like these to gain access to your life. But with the right shoes on, you and I can be protected. Shalom, which means peace. The familiar Hebrew word for peace, which permeates the Old Testament, does not refer to the absence of chaos, but rather the overall, deeply entrenched sense of harmony, health, wholeness in the midst of chaos. In fact, true peace is best detected and measured against the backdrop of commotion and confusion. When instability abounds, oh my words. When instability abounds, yet you remain steadfast. When disappointment and confusion are near, yet you are capable of walking with spirit-infused confidence, stability, and steadiness. That's how you know your feet are fitted with the preparation of the gospel of peace, a peace beyond comprehension. Go back and consider those areas of your life you commented on earlier. How did the enemy take advantage of an upsetting, unexpected, chaotic event or circumstance to gain access to your life? Well, that's a good question. So, what Satan likes to do is he waits until something gets messy and then he jumps in and just like adds fuel to the fire. So, something a little small adds fuel to the fire. What's the situation in which that happened? I have a lot of them, but at the moment to think of one. Um, okay, so I have one. Um, I've been having nausea. I spotted a little bit, and I've been having cramps. Anybody ever been pregnant, you know that those are the symptoms. I'm not sure I'm pregnant, but I also had a dream that I was pregnant. And yeah, so those are the situation. That's the situation. Um, so I was trying to figure out what did this mean, because when I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child, I also had a dream that I was pregnant. Well, actually, I had a dream of marine animals, specifically fish. And I found out later that having dreams of fish usually means that you're pregnant. And then later on, I had a dream of my daughter while I was pregnant. Well, later on in the pregnancy, that I was pregnant. So I was thinking that I'm having this dream now because I'm pregnant again. Nausea, cramping, spotting, pregnancy. But it can mean anything. Anywho, so I tell my husband about this, and he doesn't want any more children right now. So that was the situation. A little tiny, maybe I'm pregnant sparked this big thing that was then flamed to be this big thing that it really wasn't supposed to be. It was simply I'm noticing something happening with my body. I'm noticing something that happened in my sleep, and now I'm expressing it to you. And then the flame was fanned, and I don't want to say all hell broke loose, but you know, it became this big thing that it wasn't supposed to be. Satan used that to make an argument that wasn't supposed to be there. So that's the short version of things. Anywho, um, okay. Our enemy knows how easily we become encapsulated. Incap. You know what? These words. She has a great diction. Um, incapacitated. Yes. Okay, I'm going to read the sentence over because I just frustrated myself in not getting this word correctly, and I need to get it right in the sentence. Our enemy knows how easily we become incapacitated without our shoes of peace, unfit for warfare, unable to advance against him. He knows internal instability keep can keep us from being clear-headed and free-handed to fight against him, consumed with trying to grip onto the wrong things, anything to maintain our balance. He knows turbulence and distance in our relationships will expose us to accusations of hypocrisy and lead us into misguided battles, causes we were never meant to fight for, hills we were never meant to die on. But we must remain protected against this tactic, prepared to rise to our feet and move forward against the devil when divinely required to do so. This week, Paul provides some instructions to help us live abundantly, keep our sanity, and enjoy stability and balance in our lives, no matter how upsetting our circumstances have been or will become. Question: if you were back in front of that Sunday school class, would you make any changes or additions to your earlier definition of peace? Record your expanded definition here. So this is assuming that I want to change my definition. Let's go back to my definition. I thought it was a good definition. Let's go back to it though. Was it not a good definition? So, my definition of peace is contentment or being completely at rest or comfort. So let's say we're going back to the Sunday school and I need to change it. The question here was, would you make any changes or additions to your earlier definition of peace? I guess so. Because technically, according to this version of peace, it's not necessarily contentment. It's just stability when everything is going haywire around you. So you're not necessarily content, but you're at peace. Okay. So would I change my definition? I guess. Let's change it. Okay, so what would I change it to? Because I need to record my expanded definition. I would say peace is peace. Peace is acting like everything's okay even when it shouldn't be. It's an action. It's an action. Peace is an action. Kind of like when I was in labor with my children. And I heard women down the hall screaming because they were in labor too. And I was sitting there humming. I was acting as if everything was okay, though my uterus was telling me a whole different story. Peace. That's my definition. I don't know any other way to describe it. Acting as if everything's okay even when it shouldn't be. Believing that everything will be okay. Well, I guess that believing would be faith. Yep. I'm going to say peace is action. Peace is action. It's an action. You're at peace. Like if you're at peace with somebody, you can stand being around them. So you're acting as if, well, I mean, you may not be acting. Well, it's still action. You're acting as if everything's okay, because it could really be okay, or maybe it's not okay, but you're acting, in your actions it's peaceful. That's the only definition I can say about it. I don't know any other way to say it. If you guys have another definition of peace, you tell me. That's my definition. Okay, look back again at your personal list. Where's my list? Choose one of them to consider in the light of the following questions. If peace ruled your life, would your behavior change in this situation? So what situation was that? What's my personal list? Let's go back. 'Cause I don't know what my personal list said. I can't remember. Is this the your mind, your heart, your body? Is that the list? Is there another list I need to know about? I think that's it. Okay. Well, I'm going to reread the question because maybe it's right in front of me and I just can't remember. Um, Look back again at your personal list. I think it is that portion. Choose one of them to consider in the light of the following questions. So I'm going to go back to this thing that I would call my list. I'm going to pick the second one and consider that what it is, your heart. How would your behavior change in this situation? Nope, I don't think that's the right thing. I don't know what my list is. I don't know what it is. In what way would your verbal responses change? Is this the list from the first week? Is that the list that we're talking about? Is that the list from the first week? Like the things that we put in that little circle, that oval? Was that our list? I think that might be the list. I don't know. I'm going to reread the question. I'm going to read the last question and then go over this again, trying to figure out what the list is. Okay, how would your ability to function physically be improved? Yeah, I don't know what list they're talking about. The list. I don't know what list. Am I missing something? I feel like I might be missing something. Anyhow, we don't have that much time. This video is running long. And so I don't want to worry you guys about me trying to find the list. If you're looking at your list, you can fill out this question. I don't know about the list. So I'm not going to do this question, I don't think. I really want to know where this list is, though. Anyhow, I'm going to move on to the last paragraph, then do the actionable intel. As I write this last paragraph for today's lesson, I'm thinking about how you may have answered this question above. My heart is tender towards the one who hasn't slept well or eaten normally in weeks or months because you're in tremendous emotional or mental turmoil. I'm sensitive to the one whose most important relationships are in so much dysfunction that your ability to live well is affected sharply. The momentum of your life stunted. I'm praying for you even now. Yet I also feel a tinge of excitement as we launch into this week of our study, because this week can revamp your entire life. Okay. The shoes that you and I are being offered and commanded to wear are God-sized, and they can leave footprints of peace in and through your life that never thought possible. God's peace can keep your emotional footing sure, your mind and body stabilized, and your relationships intact. Remember, a backdrop of commotion is the best place for the peace of God to be put on display. So, if the enemy has been wreaking havoc all over you, and the chaos he's instigated has seemed to swallow you whole, don't be discouraged. Our God can and will anchor your soul, tethering it to the security found in His gospel. The good news of His beloved Son. Hang on, peace is on the way. Alright guys, so that is day 1. Now, the actionable intel. Once again, I didn't underline anything. I probably should have. Let's go through this so we can find some actionable intel. Let's go through it. So, first things first, we're talking about the little son who's walking in the daddy's shoes. His shoes are too big, but he's walking around in them. He's leaving footprints everywhere. We don't know if it's the dad walking around leaving footprints or the son walking around leaving footprints because he's in his dad's shoes. So, okay. That's that. We learned about what the Roman shoes actually look like. They had they had many buckles to it, or places that it was tied on so that it would stay on one. And it had spikes in the bottom, which allowed the soldiers to be able to walk and not lose their balance. We learned that. We learned that Satan uses little ways in. I'm sorry, not little ways in. He uses little things to get his way in. He doesn't like us to have peace. What else did we learn? The shoes are fitted for readiness. That's what we learned. The shoes are made for long distance walking. What else? Oh, the shoes are made so when they're under attack, they don't lose their footing. You can use that as a piece. We have peace so that when we're under attack, we don't lose our footing. So, like I said, peace is when you're acting like everything's all right, even when around you it shouldn't be all right. What else? That's all I have, I think. That's all I have, I think. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in my next video, and bye-bye.